getting, couldn't start getting excited or whatever any more than it already has. We had an interesting an interesting day today for everybody who's not paying attention. And if you're not, I'll know where you've been. But that's okay. For what should not be a shock to anybody, other than the fact that he actually got caught doing something. Steve Bannon, every time you see him, he looks worse and worse. It's like he just decays before your eyes. You know that?
Yeah.
And three others charged with fraud in border wall fundraising campaign. Bannon, who's this Colfage, he had to be the guy that actually did it, right? I mean, because Bannon's not he's not the money guy. It's a Brian Colfage. Timothy Shea. Why does that name sound familiar? I don't know why. Andrew Daldado. I don't know him. That Timothy Shea sounds familiar to me, though. The indictment describes a sleight of hand perpetrated by the defendants on donors to the We Build the Wall group within days of launching the campaign. Colfage, along with Bannon and Badaldo, made a secret arrangement in which Colfage would be paid $100K up front and then $20 per month to disguise the transfer of money. Guys, you can't make this shit up. I mean, this is Trump all over the place. There was a few others involved in this, weren't there?
Kurt Schilling got arrested also about an hour ago.
For the same thing, huh? It's funny how he jumped off of Twitter about a month ago too, wasn't it? That was coincidence, I'm sure.
So he was on the board of this We Build the Wall thing, which was the name of this, cause that Bannon was heading up to raise private funds to build the wall, but then they apparently used it as a slush fund, right?
Right.
Here, I don't know if I could throw this. I just pulled this up, and it's actually kind of funny. I'm going to see. Okay. I don't know if you could see that or not. It says share, but there you go.
There we go. I guess I have to do it.
Trump tosses another pal under the bus.
The only guy that really got it and understood was what's his name? The financial the financial guy, the Italian guy. What's his name? Patsy, the one that's been torpedoing Trump every chance he gets.
Scaramucci.
Yeah. Scaramucci. He said he'll burn you as soon as he has the reason to burn you. He's going to burn you, and there's no loyalty with him. And I don't know why these folks don't understand that. None of these folks get that. What do they think? They're going to be able to fly to the sun like Icarus and not get burned?
It always kills me. These guys think it's not going to happen to them.
Right.
Right. You've literally screwed everybody around me. Literally everybody around me, but it won't happen to me.
Right.
I always said he'd toss every one of his kids under the bus and back over him.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sure he would.
That's coming.
If he had to. Well, Kushner will be first.
Yeah.
Eric second, Don Jr. third, then Ivanka.
If Ivanka, she'll probably escape it somehow, but those other ones are on the list.
Yeah, she'll skate. She'll skate. She always does.
Yeah.
Does this really come? The best part? And this is the part I couldn't wait to say. I couldn't wait to bring this up, and I can't believe it took me this long. Guess who arrested him?
Who?
You guys aren't gonna. You guys aren't going to believe me. You won't believe me if I tell you. I'm gonna have to show you. You won't believe me if I tell you. Okay. We'll go back to that same the same CNN article I had up. He was arrested by the U.S. Postal Service.
Postal inspectors.
Don't mess with them.
Karma is a bitch, you know that?
Yeah.
Oh, Frank knows when you have a postal inspector, they have pretty broad authority.
Yep.
They have a lot of authority that you never hear about.
Oh yeah. Those
I love the karma. I do. I'll be honest. The only person I wanted to see get nabbed or arrested more was what's his face, the one he just half-assed pardoned with the Nixon tattoo on his back. Roger Stone, right? And you know what it is? You know, to me, it's not even what they do, and I guess that's kind of screwed up. To me, it's the arrogance in which they do it.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's the part that gets me the most. It's not what they do. I mean, you're going to be crooked. You're going to be crooked. That's fine. We'll either benefit from it, or you know, we'll try to get it out of you. But the arrogance in which it happens, just every time I see that arrogance, I just want them all to get caught. I want them all to go to jail, every one of them. And that's sad, but
Excuse me.
I'm sure he's going to get out on bail if he hasn't already, right? Almost positive he will. They're not gonna hold him without bail. I wouldn't think. It's not like he can go anywhere. The U.S. passport, even though he had to what do you call it? He had to give his up. The U.S. passport isn't worth a shit. He's not going to be able to go too far. How long before before Trump pardons him?
Well, he can't pardon him until after he's actually sentenced, right?
No, I think he can. Can't
Frank would be
pre-pardon somebody?
I think he has to. I think he has to be sentenced first. I think he has to go through the process, because if he isn't convicted, then there's nothing to pardon him on.
Well, I'd say the court date should be November 4th then.
Yeah.
You think he's gonna spend much time in jail? My guess is he's gonna post bail. They're probably not gonna let him in the building because of the COVID thing. Which, again, maybe it's me, but I don't have a problem with that. I want the guy to go to jail. I don't want him to die of COVID. He's a piece of garbage, but Trump surrounds himself with garbage. Frank, how much do you think they're going to hit him for whenever they find him guilty? Because they're going to find him guilty.
I mean, it depends how corrupt he was with this money. I mean, because I think one of the things that could really doom him in this situation is if he was really egregious with the spending of this money and how much of it he took. It's public trust. It's an issue. The legality of it is going to be pretty clear, I'm sure. But I think the sentiment around it is going to be like, well, wait a minute, we sent this money to you to do this purpose, and then you've used it for something else. I think there will be a lot of public sentiment for him to spend a fair amount of time, maybe a year or two, for something like this, a financial crime. Financial crimes, as you know, if he doesn't lie about it, he's probably looking at just a fairly short period of time in a cushy facility, right? I mean, something like one of those guys that did the financial crimes in the 80s, maybe too. But nobody likes their liberty taken away. That's kind of where I see it. I think, the one that, I mean, we know who Steve Bannon is. He's a piece of crap. He is. Schilling, he spouts off a lot of crappy stuff. To me, I think he's the more juicy one because it's like, here's a World Series champ. Here's a guy who had everything. Family, kids, World Series Hall of Fame career, basically. And he got real angry over what? For what? And he leads up this charge around this kind of crap. He thought he was going to make himself famous in the second career with all this crap, being the second Rush Limbaugh kind of guy. Hey, you're going to reap what you sow now, buddy. And the other thing is he faked it too, by the way. That red sock, that was ketchup they put on there. That wasn't blood. Back in the World Series when he went out there and pretended like he was bleeding out of his foot while he was pitching, that wasn't blood. So, here's a guy who tried to fake it, make himself look better, like he's overcoming some big thing. He gets it. He's going to get what he deserves, which is to, all this hate that he's spewed to people that have listened to him, and he's incited all this hate amongst people. I like this one almost better because I think he's the perfect example of using your found fame for ill, and I like to see him play.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Lou. I'm sorry.
No, I just agree with Frank. It's like, these, it's ego. They want to be in the limelight. He's out of baseball. He needs somebody to say, okay, Kurt, you're still the greatest,
I have another question, then we'll get off this topic. What night is he giving a speech at the RNC?
My God, have you seen that RNC lineup?
Oh, have him be like, right?
Yes.
I was just wondering now that QAnon's going mainstream with the Republicans, if like Chachi's going to give the QAnon presentation next week with that.
Chachi. Joni doesn't love Chachi anymore.
Do you realize that there's 2 Republicans that won primaries with that bullshit?
Yep.
And, well, I know Patsy listens to this guy once in a while. Going into Cleveland this morning, I'm listening to Rover.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
and I know damn well the way he works. He was egging on about this QAnon. Of course, the one dipshit on there, Dieter's like, well, it could be true. And he's bringing all this in. Well, then he took some calls. And he took him, oh my God, he was laughing. He says, and after they'd hang up, he said, these people idiots or what? Literally about this, JFK Jr.'s coming back to align with Trump. And they're saying this thing's going to break any day now, with the pedophiles. And Podesta's emails were all code for not I want pizza, meaning pizza means I want a little one. Pizza with pasta on the side means it's a boy, not a girl. And they were going on and on. He says, that's the stupid. Rover's like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, I can see him actually losing his shit over that whole thing too.
With how easy it is to lead these people down the primrose path, I'm waiting for the Lincoln group to come out with a conspiracy theory that Trump is going to be the one that takes away their guns. And that, they can say, listen, why don't you confront him with this? Ask him if he's going to take away their guns, and then he'll do what he does all the time. He'll lie straight to your face because he's lied 10,000 times. So wait for his answer. He'll say, I love the NRA. We can tell you he's going to lie to your face. He's going to say, I love the NRA. I would never take away your guns. And that's how you know he's going to take away your guns, because he lies. So it's Trump that's going to take away your guns. And then I'd love to see these QAnon head explode. They'd say, wait a minute, is it possible that he wants to? And then they should get him on a recording somewhere. Somebody should walk in and say, hey, President Trump, do you think the Democrats, these people that belong to Antifa, should they have their gun rights revoked? Oh, yeah, we should revoke their gun rights. Now take that sound clip and put it on to something else where they say, should they have their gun rights revoked? Yes, I think we should revoke gun rights. And then have it in his voice say that. And let's just start a whole new conspiracy theory around that. But guess what? Their heads will explode.
You know what? It would almost be worth the effort, wouldn't it? Just for the reaction. You don't even give a shit if you just want to see their reaction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just as accurate as saying Biden wants to come take your guns away. There is no proof of this. There's no reality to it, but they buy
No.
into it.
If if you take a look at this all-star lineup they got going here,
That's beautiful.
How does any of these clowns appeal to anybody but his base?
I can't. I don't get it. I mean, like Scott Baio. Really? I mean, the last time I saw him in anything of any relevance whatsoever, and I'm not saying, like I don't care about celebrity or anything, but I'm just saying, like, from a relevance standpoint, was Entourage. I saw him in Entourage where he was kind of spoofing himself in a sense with the crew there. They were like fighting over who was going to still be able to go to the Playboy Mansion, living off their old fame. And yeah, so like, what's Scott Baio? What, I don't get it. Like, what's the, just because he's a Republican, because he supports Republican causes or he's a MAGA? But why? Like, what's that? What does that do for you to bring him to the convention?
I don't know, Lou. I don't know if you heard my question.
What was it?
My question was, you look at this all-star lineup they have.
Okay.
How do these clowns appeal to anybody but his base? Because we all know Republicans and we all know MAGAs. I don't see how any of these knuckleheads appeal to your traditional Republicans, but I see
I don't see
all
how.
these fuckers appeal to his base.
I would think if I was a regular Republican seeing these 6 on there, I would be embarrassed for my party.
Yeah,
I would too.
For the base, they're going to cheer.
yeah.
I'll tell you what. Good. Again, I apologize.
No, it just amazes me when I first saw this yesterday or whenever it was. I literally asked, "Is this an Onion picture?" And my response back was, "No," and we checked it out. I'm like, "Oh my God."
What this tells me is, regardless of what the outcome is in November, the Republican Party is now solely Trump's party.
Yeah, it is.
That's what this tells me.
Is it going to cause a fracture in that party to split?
It would be nice, but do you think Republicans are even the traditional old school John McCain Republicans, or do you think they're just too much of lemmings to split away?
Well, hopefully it'll take 2 election cycles of ass whoopings to do it if it works out.
Frank, what do you think?
I'd like to believe that it will cause such a fracture in that party that it'll be essentially done. That it'll have to rebuild itself in a different way, rebrand itself in a different way. But I'm a little pessimistic. I think that the Tea Party and the MAGA folks have infiltrated so deeply that they'll just take over the shell of what that party is, and they'll continue to win local elections. They'll continue to win state houses. They'll continue to win a lot of things that'll keep them empowered to cheat in ways that will keep them in some relevance and power. Traditional Republicans will just either join the Democratic Party or try to join a third party or become independent and throw their weight behind whatever candidate they want to throw their weight behind. I think we're in for a long haul. I think we're in for a real long haul in this country because of this. They're not going away. I don't think they're
going away. No.
Yeah, I don't think they're going away. And I think the Republican Party will just carry on as a shell of itself, run by MAGAs and Tea Party people.
You know, the thing that I actually find entertaining is that you have a Republican Party now that what you saw, that picture, that's Trump and that's Trump's party, and that's going to be what the Republican Party is for the foreseeable future, win or lose. These traditional Republicans are in a tough spot because if you haven't noticed, the Democrat Party either starting to veer left or the left-hand curve sign is coming up ahead. You can see it coming, right? These guys are not going to have anywhere to go, right? They're not going to want to deal with this garbage, and they're not going to want to get as progressive as the Democrats are going to be. What's going to happen to them? Where are they going to go?
Third party or independent?
I was going to say you're going to end up with center-right Democrats and left-center Republicans into a third. Is independents or something else?
Let me ask you this. It begs this question, and I think it's an important consideration. If you're a leader in the Democratic Party, whether locally, statewide, or nationally, do you accept folks that are defecting from the Republican Party if they say we want to join the Democratic Party? Do you accept them, and do you allow them to get into leadership positions?
No. It's gone too far to the center now.
I disagree. I think that you leave it open, and if they can earn it, then yeah, they get it.
I get that, Patsy, but like we talked about yesterday, and Lou, you were golfing. Thank God you had a chance to do that yesterday. We talked about this with regard to Ocasio-Cortez, and I think there's a little difference. There's definitely a difference of opinion between Patsy and I on this issue, in the sense of I believe in Ocasio-Cortez. I like her because I feel like we need to be pushed back to the left. Because while I don't agree with all of her principles and philosophies, we've gone so far to the right, as you said. I don't think it's center. It's just so far right that bring us back to the center. We have to go. Somebody has to push to the left, very far to the left, to bring us back to the center. And I'm afraid that if we let Republicans get into the Democratic Party, that they'll continue that push further and further right. And the Democratic Party will not represent the progressive ideas that we need in this country. We can't take half measures anymore. I mean, how long has it been since we've had a raise in the federal pay rate, in the minimum wage?
10, is it
20
13 years?
It's
2007?
Yeah,
2007.
Yeah, so 13 years, and it's not been taken care of in any meaningful way, either through legislation. There's small measures in states and cities around the country that are trying to address it, but unions have been destroyed for the most part. There's no federal legislation pending that I know of that would raise the rate. So you've got people who are living, they're struggling to pay rent. Just saw something today in the city of Baltimore. 57% of people, 57% of the city of Baltimore residents are struggling to pay rent. 57%. And then on top of that, there's another category where it says they are not just struggling, they can't. Okay? It's not at 57%, it's like 20 something percent. Okay, here it is. 57% of the renters are cost burdened, and 33% are severely cost burdened. Okay? So how are we going to continue to function in this society if people can't pay their damn rent because they're not making enough money? We've got to have policymakers who are going to push this and say it's not, we don't need to be ashamed to do that. And if these Republicans who have been pushing back against this all this time come in and co-opt the Democratic Party, they're going to continue to try to make people ashamed to do that.
And the thing is the mainstream media does not report on things like this. You got to realize, I forget where I saw it today, but since, let's just go back 40 years, Reaganomics. In that time, CEO pay has risen 1,167%. The average American worker's pay has gone up 13.7%.
Wow.
Okay, and it used to be CEO pay was maybe 40 to 1 max over the worker on the floor. It's now what, about 800 to 1, 1,000 to 1? I believe the CEO of McDonald's makes more in 2 hours than the full-time McDonald's worker does in a year
2
at
hours.
minimum wage.
Well, I'm still confused about something. Why are we assuming that these disgruntled Republicans are going to come and take over the Democratic Party? Are the Democrats just going to let them do it? Are they just going to say, "Okay, come in, you can run the show now"?
Well, they've been dumb enough to do things like that.
Well, if they can't handle their own party, what's the point of having the party?
Well, good point. But they want to join, they join. But you know what? You think about what the FDR policies were of after the Depression and into World War II, and Truman and actually Eisenhower continued into the and Kennedy into the early 60s. How far right are we from that right now? When they say left, we're not even. A lot of AOC's things are only going back to. I'm not even sure they're enough to match FDR, or just there. Same with Bernie Sanders.
That's a good point.
Human rights in 1947.
That's a good point.
A Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1947. Have you heard about it? Do you know what the provisions are? I mean, we don't follow it really. I mean, it's been enacted in 1947 under FDR, after FDR, but we don't. There's a human right to housing. There's a human right to food. We don't follow that.
Human right to health care and a human right to a good, decent paying job. That was his. I think he had 4 points, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Frank, do you remember yesterday? I know it was a long time ago.
A lot has gone under the bridge since then, Patsy.
A lot of stuff has happened since we last saw each other. I don't want to say last spoke, but last saw each other. And we were talking about the DNC and how AOC only got that 60-second little clip, and I said, I threw out at you, do you think it was because she was bucking the I don't want to say that. Well, yeah, she was bucking the system basically, and she was, a representative for about 3 seconds whenever she decided to start bucking the system, and this was kind of a shot across the bow to tell her to stay in line. Remember, I kind of threw that theory at you.
I remember it was a good conversation we had about that. Yeah.
New York Post today. It seems like we have a couple of alpha females in the Democratic Party, right?
Yeah.
I should preface this by saying I'm all for it because somebody's got to take charge, and it's got to. You can't just you can't be complacent, right? You always got to try to push each other, right? You always got to try to push everything. We said that yesterday. It turns out Nancy Pelosi endorsed Joe Kennedy III in a primary challenge against Ed Markey. What pissed off AOC about all of this was because Ed Markey, I'm saying his name right, am I not? Basically supported AOC's Green New Deal in the Senate. So he was behind her push, trying to get her agenda across. And well, here it is right here. He was the Senate sponsor of AOC's Green New Deal. So we have that. AOC wrote on Twitter, "No one gets to complain about primary challenges again." Remember what yesterday I said, Frank? I really love her passion.
Yeah.
But she's got to kind of learn to play the game. What do you think? Am I right, wrong, or do you have is there a third opinion?
Look, I gotta agree with you in being that we are a man of a certain age, and Lou is too, and we know that playing the game means sometimes that you concede sometimes and you get something back in return, and it's a long road, right? There's a long road, and because we're men of a certain age, we've been down that road. But I will say this: before I was a man of a certain age, I acted more impulsively like she did. And I think back about it, and I think sometimes I think back and I shake my head at my own actions, but other times I think back and I say, I get with people like Dennis Alisco, who was in the room when I did some of these things, and Bernie Rizza, who's another attorney out of Pittsburgh, and he was opposing counsel on this case, and I was in the judge's chambers. I won't tell you which judge on air, but I'll tell you off the air. And I confronted the judge in chambers with a very brash young man's way of doing things, and they laugh about it to this day. They say we almost fell off our chairs when you did that, and so sometimes it takes that impact. And I'll tell you that judge did. He was the kind of judge that needed that and respected it. Actually, I don't know that that's going to work in this situation with Pelosi, but I do think that Pelosi probably respects it a little bit. She may want to fight and may cross swords and things like that, so to speak. But a strong woman, both of them strong women, don't back down. So I'm leaning towards kind of the third option with heavily in the column of saying, learn to play the game to some extent. But I understand expressing yourself. I understand having that passion and not backing down to some extent also. And sometimes it takes running into the wall a few times before you learn that lesson.
Lou, what do you think?
I just got sidetracked on a work email. Days.
All right. Well, you can pick up after I say my piece.
I'll get it later. I start going.
It's a fine line, right? Because like we said yesterday, and what we kind of hit on a little bit, even now, you don't want to quash that passion and that enthusiasm, right? That's something I hope she has. I hope she has a very long career, and I hope she keeps that her entire career, right? Because that's going to pay off more than it's going to hinder her. But on the other hand, I think because of that passion that she has and that commitment and that drive and everything else you want to say, sometimes she needs to get knocked down a couple of times to kind of register, okay, I got to take this path instead of that path. I have to. She doesn't appear to know yet that, like you said, that you have to play the long game, and there's some hills not worth dying on. This, I think, is one of those things, right? Where this isn't a hill worth dying on.
Right, I agree with that.
It's really not. Maybe you say something to her in her office or whatever off to the side, say, hey, look, I really didn't appreciate that. And you just kind of go on your way, right? Let her rebuke it any way you want, but you don't put stuff like that out on Twitter. You don't put that stuff. You don't do your laundry on social media.
That's right.
It's what, I like her passion too, and I know she wants to get everything done in one term. What's in the back of her mind.
That's you, right?
This election's too important. She just needs to back down some. After the election, she could start pushing a little left at a time. And like you said, she has to learn that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's just you. That's the only thing that's happening now.
Is she 30, 31? That's all she is.
Yeah. I mean, is she half? I think she's less than half Pelosi's age, right? I think Pelosi's served longer than AOC's been alive.
Good chance.
And she brings a certain knowledge and a certain awareness from being young, and also who she represents. She represents the Bronx, and she's going to say, "Look, I'm a fighter." Okay, she like you said yesterday, Patsy. She's from New York. She's showing it as opposed to what Chuck Schumer does. Chuck Schumer is so meek and mild. He's in the corner and he's making jokes because he's weak. Whereas she's like, "Listen, I don't care if I'm a first termer or a 10-termer. I'm fighting for what I believe in."
Right.
And but I agree with your point. The point you made that I cannot disagree with at all is that this is one of those petty things. Like this was not a fight that she needed to really take public.
No.
Take the other fights that are very important public. I know she's offended by it. I get it that she's being told, don't do this, don't do that, and somebody else does it. I get that.
Yeah, I'd be pissed too.
Yeah, but it's not a fight that you want to take public.
Right.
That's a great point to make.
you said she represents the Bronx. I think she also represents a lot more, right? I think she represents a generation. I think she represents not only a younger generation, but I think she represents women and minorities in that generation as well, right? So she has a lot of she has a lot on her shoulders and I think she recognizes that. I really do. She doesn't really address it all that much, but I think she recognizes it. You get hints of it every once in a while. And like I said, you don't want that quashed, right? You want that. I mean, you almost want to exploit that, right? You want people to see that enthusiasm and that strength and that drive. So it's a really tough line for somebody in Pelosi's position to navigate, because at some point you have to kind of let her know who's boss, but at the same time you don't want to you don't want to get into a pissing contest, and you don't want to throw shade on her either.
I get the feeling Nancy will figure out how to handle it. Figure out how to handle it, right?
So it's tough. It's a fine line to walk.
Yeah.
Hopefully, this thing dies here. It probably does. You're probably not here anymore. I mean, this was in the New York Post. I literally didn't see it anywhere else.
New York Post likes to stir up some shit. I noticed up in the right corner of that same thing you put up, the Swedish Dr. Fauci, they called him. The Swedish Dr. Fauci makes a great case against masks. So you got to remember that what the New York Post is all about. They want to stir up shit in the Democratic Party. They like to try to. That's the position they take. So, and I will say this: Sweden is having a resurgence of COVID right now. They're having a tough time. We talked about their reaction to it is much different than Italy's. Italy had a complete lockdown. Sweden tried to go very free and say our people understand. They'll listen when you say not to go out in public without a mask on. We don't have to tell them what to do. But, they're having some difficulty right now. So, I don't know if the New York Post is really, my point is this. Their motives are sometimes just so anti-democrat that they're making maybe a bigger deal out of this than anybody else.
Well, do you know who owns the New York Post?
I agree.
Who?
What's that?
Because I knew who owned it when I saw that headline. I'm thinking, well, this is bullshit. Rupert Murdoch's owned it since '78. He actually bought it before he started Fox Entertainment.
There you go. There you go. Frank, you were talking about Italy and how they handled COVID. Now, wouldn't it be nice if everybody did things the Italian way?
Sometimes I'd have to
just come on, man.
Sometimes I'd have to say it's probably the best. It could be, I mean, look, if you want to make clocks, you look at the people in the Black Forest and say that they probably make the best clocks, and maybe in Switzerland too.
Right.
But if you want to live a certain kind of life and enjoy it, could do worse than patterning the Italians.
Frank, our people ruled the world at one time. I mean, come on. Judge rejects Trump's latest effort to keep his tax returns for a Manhattan DA. The federal judge has dismissed Trump's latest attempt to block a subpoena for his tax records. Tuesday's ruling by the U.S. District Judge basically what happened is the U.S. District Judge allowed the lower court's ruling. Frank, you can jump in and correct me at any time here. And that was held up because the Supreme Court in July said the president is not immune from the subpoena. So immediately after this happened, I think it was within an hour, Trump's legal team went back and what do you call it? God, brain for it. It's going back to the district court now, right?
Yeah.
They appealed it.
Yeah.
That's it. Jeez, I can remember the word appeal. You know that. Frank, what happens now?
I mean, he can keep arguing, and that's his whole goal, right? We've talked about this before: is to delay. But I mean, the writing is on the wall. there is no real good reason to keep the records from being released. The Manhattan DA needs to say, okay, we've got our ruling in hand. Issue your subpoena upon the people that are holding it, which is what Mazars or whatever their name is, and Deutsche Bank. Anybody who's got his tax returns in their possession, and then you wait to see if Trump's legal team, does something to try to subpoenas and files their appeal timely and perfects it. Because I'm going to say this, you have to do things according to procedure. When you get to this level, it's a little bit more difficult. And they have to probably file a notice of appeal with the proper parties. They have to file the actual appeal itself. And if they don't do that properly, then they could be lost forever in terms of this argument and this issue. So I think what you do as the Manhattan DA is you force the issue. You issue the subpoenas and say, we have a court order in hand, honor the subpoenas right now. Trump's team has to then react. If they've got the appeals filed properly, then the next level court can go ahead and entertain the arguments. Was there a procedural issue? Was there a factual mistake by this court or this judge? Was there an error of law? It doesn't seem to be. I mean, it seems that the law is pretty clear. The arguments that were made by Trump's team don't seem to have any precedence to say that he's immune from turning this over. There seems to be no precedent and no legal reason for that. So taking this up on appeal is just to serve delay. It's just to serve as a delay tactic. That's all.
So am I right? In every place that they're appealing this, every court they're appealing it to had at this point already ruled on it once, right?
Yeah, these are the same issues, the same facts, the same law, and it's the same parties. There's nothing else to go.
At what point does he run out of appeals? Is there? Let me ask you this way: Is there a court someplace in one of these courts that he's just bouncing between now that basically says enough? We're not going to hear anymore.
Yeah, the Supreme Court can say that, because basically what they could say is we did rule on this issue. Remember, that wasn't that long ago. And they can say we sent it back to that court to get into the nitty gritty and the details. They did that. They didn't mess anything up, and there wasn't really anything for us to review. So what they'll say is your appeal request is denied. So don't start time with it.
So they're going to keep bouncing around, and it eventually could make its way to the Supreme Court again?
Yeah, because that is the court that would be in the chain of these ones where eventually it would end up, and they could say, was there anything done by this judge during this proceeding which was technically wrong? And if they can't find any technical wrongs that are drastic enough to change anything, then the court can say, we don't need to hear this. It's just a waste of time. Yeah.
Is it pretty safe to say then that none of that's going to happen within the next 75 days?
I don't think it's totally safe to say that. I think of a matter of this importance, they could potentially fast track it. It's possible. It's absolutely possible, and I think that's what Trump's team is banking on. But the DA's office can say, look, we have this subpoena in hand. We have the rulings in hand. We want the records now. And then they can go back to that judge and say, let's say that Trump's team doesn't file the appeal. They can go to the judge and say they have to turn this over. Mazars hasn't turned it over. And then you start finding them. You start charging them money, holding them in contempt. If Trump's team does appeal, then the DA can say, look, let's fast track this to the Supreme Court. Let's get a ruling right now. Let's get a ruling. Let's find out if this is going to get, if there's any meat to this at all. Let's get it over with.
And the Supreme Court could ultimately even decide to not even hear it, right?
Right.
Okay. Just wanted to clear it up for everybody. Just continue. This is really the textbook case, it appears to me, of somebody who's playing the system. Right? I mean, he's just playing the system to buy time, it seems like to me. You think that? Yeah. You think that's a fair assumption?
Lou, what do you think?
I would say so, because doesn't he have another one coming up with the DNA in September?
Oh yeah, we didn't even get to that yet.
I'm just thinking about that. He's trying to bounce it off till after the election. Then what? He loses. Is he done appealing? He's gone then.
Yeah.
Well, if he loses the election, all bets are off. Every state in the country is going to come after him at that point, right? I mean, he's gonna be buried.
Yeah.
Uh,
Anywhere he has a business.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, anywhere he did any business at all. It's going to be a good day when that happens. Even more important, even bigger reason why everybody better go vote. Lou, here's one for you. This will probably be the last one we talk about today. Top Republican national security officials say they will vote for Biden. In a letter released, actually, just earlier today. Okay, they're just making it really dramatic. The letter itself is a pretty. Oops, I didn't want to do that. Is a pretty good letter. Let me see if I think this is it. Yeah. A statement by former Republican national security officials. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but here's the reasons that they and then they're who signed off on this letters at the bottom. I'll scroll down to that, but there's 10 points. Trump has gravely damaged America's role as a world leader. Trump has shown he's unfit to lead during a national crisis. I think everybody who this COVID thing is proof of that. He solicited foreign influences and undermined confidence in our presidential elections. Well, we've known that for 3 years, and it was hammered home earlier this week. He aligned himself with dictators and failed to stand up for American values. That might be subject to interpretation, but I don't think you're going to find too many people who's not drinking the Kool-Aid to argue with that. He's dispersed our armed forces, intelligence agencies, and diplomats. Yes, whenever you take Putin's word over your own intelligence agency, then yeah, that's pretty much. He's undermined the rule of law. Well, that's literally everything we've talked about today. He's dishonored the office of presidency. Well, you can just go back, pick a day, any day, close your eyes, throw a dart, and look at his tweets. He's divided our nation and preached a dark, pessimistic view of America. Yes, he has. There's no lie about that. If you don't believe that, just look at any one of his campaign commercials. He's attacked, vilified immigrants to our country. Yes, you know that. He put kids in cages, for God's sake. He's mismanaged his national security team. I guess tear gassing protesters will do that. But here's the people who signed off on it, and this list goes on for quite a while. Some of the names may not be familiar to a lot of people, but their positions definitely should not come as a surprise. Everybody should have heard of at least most of these positions, even if you're not sure what they do or saw any or recognize any of the names in it. I guess my question to you, Frank, or I'm sorry, Lou, is we'll get Frank in after this. Do you think this is simply symbolic, or do you think it's going to carry any weight?
I think it'll carry weight with borderline moderate Republicans, the leftover from the traditional Republican Party. With the MAGAs, no, they're lucky they can pick their nose and not wipe it on their car. With the regular, with the traditionals, I feel it would. I mean, you think about what he's undermined, and they don't even mention, well, I'm sure I didn't read the whole thing, but you think about just what he did with Syria and Turkey. He's let Putin and Xi slide into some of these places you don't hear about. It's going to, when it all comes out, he gets defeated. We're going to see that we've lost a lot of strategic points in the world with other nations. Mm-hmm. That because of what he's done, he's let Russia slide into the Mideast further. He's let China slide in. And you know what? China's did it smartly. They got money behind them. They've actually gone into some of these countries and say, hey, you know what? Let us help you out with food and agriculture and things like that. You know what? How are you going to get that back?
That's a good question.
Frank?
Yeah, Ethiopia. China's big in Ethiopia right now. They built a lot of roads and they helped with agriculture there. And there's strategic spots there. They've done it in the Middle East and in Africa, Northern Africa. Um, we're really in danger of being displaced in a lot of ways, in a lot of places. I agree with you, Lou. I agree with you that the people who have their finger on the pulse of why it's important to have standing in the world, um, like those old guard Republican folks, they're gonna this will hit home with them. It will make a difference with them. But with the MAGA folks, no, it won't. They'll just talk about this being deep state. Pull that list up again, please, Patsy. The names.
Oh, geez, I got to find it again. I actually killed it.
Okay. Well, that's okay. Can't find
hold on. I think I can grab it here.
The number of names on that list, just from knowing what some of those people did.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you a story about one of them. There's a name on that list named Chuck Hagel. Chuck Hagel is a senator from Nebraska. Okay. Do you get any more middle of the country than Nebraska? Do you get any more, Republican, old guard Republican than Chuck Hagel? Chuck Hagel was not a guy that came from power or privilege. He was a guy who went to Vietnam as a grunt, him and his brother both, and they served there and they at a cost. Okay. They both suffered, both physically and emotionally from their service time in Vietnam. And much like John McCain, Chuck Hagel was a war hero. And he earned his heroism. Unlike Trump, who likes to say, I like my heroes this way, I like my heroes that way. Trump, you weren't a war hero. These are actual guys who went there when they were teenagers. They were kids. There it is, Senator Chuck Hagel, former Secretary of Defense and U.S. Senator. Middle row, 1, 2, 3, fourth down. Okay? That guy paid his dues. Okay? I'm going to tell you right now. You look up his story. You look up anything about him. Just Google Chuck Hagel tonight. Anybody's watching the show, go through and find anything you can find negative about him and then get back to us. Send us a message on the show. Tell me if you found anything negative about Chuck Hagel. Anywhere. You're not going to even find it on conspiracy boards because guess what? He's unassailable. The guy is solid. All right? So
look at the next name under that.
Michael Hayden. Yeah.
Pittsburgh guy.
Yep. So if you go through this list and you see the names on these aren't deep state people. These are people who lived life, normal life, got called into service, stayed in service like Chuck Hagel did for his country, and understands what's at stake. Okay? Forget about these crazy, wacky conspiracy theories. Go back to the facts, the real thing, and understand what's being done to our country. Understand that these are people who care about our country. They love our country. You're not going to sit there and say that Chuck Hagel hates America. That's one of the big rallying cries of the MAGAs. The Democrats hate America. The liberals hate America. Chuck Hagel put his life on the line for America. Okay? He doesn't hate America. So, enough. And I think this kind of stuff really will definitely have an effect with the older Republicans and more mainline Republicans for sure.
See, Senator John Warner's on that list also.
Yeah, I was just about to. Well, I was gonna, but I did enough. You'd have to have been around or paid attention for a few years for some of these names, like I said, to ring a bell. Robert Blackwell's another one. But like I said, the positions should not come as a surprise to anybody, right? These are big hitters. These are heavy hitters. These are not, what did he call Papadopoulos?
Coffee boy.
Yeah, coffee boys, right? These are not coffee boys, or coffee people, I should say, although most of them are men. These are serious people, right? I remember that name too. Sean O'Keefe. I remember that name. Huge. These are not people who play around, right? I don't think they know how to not be serious. And I think you're right, Lou, and Frank agreed with you. I think this will sway. For some reason, I keep calling them McCain Republicans, but it could have been just your traditional Republicans. I guess McCain's on my mind because of the Joe Biden thing. What was it, Monday night or Tuesday night? Whenever his wife had that nice thing about the friendship that McCain had with Biden. For some reason, that stuck with me. I don't know why, but I hope this does sway enough people. I say it hesitantly because, man, I just find it so hard to believe that you're going to have a number of Republicans not vote for a Republican. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. It's just it's something that's hard to register in my mind. But you know what? It's very rare that I like to be wrong, but I hope I am. It will be it'll be a very happy day for me if I am. Let's leave it at that. Frank, speaking of not so happy day, something you and I our hearts are going to drop whenever. Well, mine did when I read it. Yours is going to. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know that day's coming sometime, but
yeah, that was a hard hard headline to read, and the we know it's a short story, was even harder to read. I don't want him leaving Barca, but at the same time, I want him leaving Barca.
do you take this as I'm leaving to play somewhere else, or I'm retiring? What do you take that as?
I'm leaving to play somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah. He looked good in pink, Frank. I'd like to see him in Miami.
Yeah, it'd be so awesome. It'd be so awesome. He doesn't speak English very well.
Oh, Miami's even better. Miami doesn't speak English.
Yeah, they speak Spanish, so yeah.
Real quick before we kill this, one club. Where do you think he'd go? Where's he going to go? You have to name one club.
I think that he would probably want to go to. I think he would like to go to Man City and have them beat Liverpool, and that be his crowning achievement.
PSG.
All right, go play with Neymar.
Neymar, him and Di Maria are still tight. I think he'd like to play with Mbappe.
Would it be fascinating?
What a side they'd have. Lou, what do you think? Where's he going?
Columbus.
Columbus. Tell you what, they went to Columbus. My son would be doing backflips.
We'd have an apartment. We'd have an apartment down there, wouldn't we?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's Nick's side, believe it or not. Them, I don't understand it. Them and LA Galaxy. I don't understand how you can do that, but it's my son. What are you gonna do? Columbus and LA. Whatever.
You can see the stadium right off 71 there.
See that? That'd be perfect. That'd be perfect.
It used to be where or maybe they still play there. Didn't the Yankees AA affiliate play there?
I don't know if he played there, but I mean, like in Cincy, yeah, or Columbus. Sorry, yeah, Columbus.
Columbus Clippers.
Yeah. Yeah. Times they are changing.
Yep.
Well, guys, what do you say we stick a fork in this? Lou, I didn't even ask you how'd you golf.
I'm glad you didn't. Let's stick.
Okay, forget it. I don't answer me that. Not bad, huh?
I parred the last hole.
There you go. See?
Out of the sand, spectacular shot, and I said, I'm done.
That's what brings you back the next time, right?
Lou, what do I keep telling you? You pay for the whole course, you use the whole course. You know, you don't get a break if you go par, right? You walk off any the front or the back at 36, they don't give you any money back.
No. I feel better though.
The last memory is that ball going in the hole in the par, and you think about how you saved that par on that hole. That leaves you smiling on the way home. Forget about the first 8 or other holes, whatever it was. So
there you go. Okay, guys, let's call this today. Everybody who's watching, thank you very much. We will be back tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel. It'd be a good day to end the week if something positive breaks in this this crazy thing we got going here. But until then, we'll see you. Goodbye. Good luck.